Hello, Gravitrons. I'm more gravity. Let's play chess. It's a chess game I won um, 3 or 4 minutes ago. I had the black pieces, so let's take a look. We'll start in review mode. Queen's pawn opening, early c5, and then I'll capture on d4. Make sure that I don't get overwhelmed on d5. Right now, I'm fine on d5 because of the pieces. Well, I kind of upped the ante. The thought of bishop e5 is if black just plays some, enter a move, a6, then bishop takes f5, regardless of how black recaptures. White now has two pieces on d5 to one defender. It's called removing the defender. And white will be ahead, central pawn. White will be ahead a pawn's worth of material. Sometimes think of this as upping the ante with knight c6, attacking a high value piece in a way that disrupts the plan of bishop takes f6. I think more correctly, in terms of chess speak, you would call this accelerating your opponent's plan. I was taught this by International Master Josh Waitzkin on the Chess Masters series. You accelerate your opponent's plan. I'm attacking the queen on d4, but white is not ready to capture on d5 for loss of queen by the move knight takes d5. So we're accelerating our opponent's plan, and it's not clear that white can move the queen in a way that sustains both the pressure on d5 and her own safety, as well as sticking to the bishop on e5 and being able to capture in return after a capture like knight takes e5. Queen f4, and I liquidate the knight for bishop here. I felt that after this move, after e6, black's doing well. It's equal in terms of material. White has a bit of an exposed queen. Black's central pawn structure is very solid. The knight on f6 is developed and influencing play. He's also safe while doing that. There's a clear path towards development for the bishop on f8, save for the fact that he can move to so many great squares that it's not really all that clear. It's just there's awesome development in black's dark squared bishop's future. The bishop on c8 is not hemmed in too badly, even though there's a pawn on e6, because after bishop to d7, there's wonderful opportunities on the queen side here. Just be careful about the b file and the a file because the white knight, is partially controlling those squares. But overall, black has a real clear and steady plan to develop and is doing fine in terms of material. e3 is not a bad move. White is going to solve the question of white's light squared bishop's development. Where is this bishop going to develop? And bishop to d6 will allow black to develop with tempo here. The queen moves to g5, ostensibly eyeing g7, the undefended pawn at g7. I'll castle into that because there's no follow-up. The king can guard g7. Bishop e2. Alright, I gotta be a little bit critical about bishop e2. This is the position with white to move. There's aggressive square. Aggressive square, although maybe it's not all so great now that the king has castled. But nonetheless, aggressive square. Um, there's there might be ways to play g3 and have a long-lasting strong piece. I'm not all that impressed by bishop to e2. It's a little bit too passive. The knight's going to move to f3, so it'll be blocked on the d1 h5 diagonal. Alright, so bishop e2 and bishop b4. So, I was critical of bishop e2. Well, guess what? What the heck's going on with bishop b4? Well, I'll tell you what's going on. First of all, it's the pin. Second of all, this can come at any time. Bishop to d7 is where my light squared bishop is going to develop. I'm not worried about a counterattack that much right now. And it presents bishop b4 presents a clear threat in addition to this awesome pin. Well, starting with just bishop takes c3 check and then doubling the pawns, but even beyond that, knight to e4, attacking white's queen on g5, but also adding a second attacker to c3. Without calculating all the variations, if there is a way, if it were black to move and black plays knight to e4, without calculating all the variations, I would say at least white will need to spend some time to solve this riddle. Maybe queen e5 would, both protect the knight and move the queen to safety. Then aren't we playing queen, or are we playing pawn to f6 at this point? Booting that queen, so she has to move yet again. Maybe she'll move to d4. So maybe better than pawn to f6 was queen to f6, or whatever it is. Alright, knight to f3, knight e4. Alright, we're threatening to win a piece because after knight takes c3, b takes c3, bishop takes c3 check, wherever the king moves, or if he chooses to, or if my opponent chooses to block with knight d2, then the rook on a1 will be lost. So my opponent wants to reduce the number of threats on the board. This is correct play, and this is in my opinion, this is the best move. And now it's Stockfish 18, by the way, that I have loaded, at least today. Stockfish 18 considers this an excellent move, and of course I'm recapturing. We go ahead with the plan of capturing on c3. We only will get one pawn out of this whole mess, but that's not all that bad given the strength of black's central pawn chain, some relatively sorry about that. So, okay, after the queen swap, black has a strong pawn chain, a strong knight at e4. The knight at c3 is pinned, and we can make double pawns here soon. I captured with the bishop to get this little pot shot at e2. After knight takes c3, bishop to d3, pawn to f6. There's some calculation behind these moves, but I don't really want to go over it. I withdraw the knight. I think maybe that wasn't all that great a move. This knight is so strong on d4. I might have done better. Fortunately, I have the pawn at e6 that can boot the d4 knight. Pawn to b6 just to close down the b file, especially because the rook at b1 blocks his own rook. I'm a little bit critical of this move as well. Rook to b1, you would, I mean, just naturally, instead of rook at f to b1, you would play rook at a to b1. I don't know why you would want to hem in your own rook on the starting square. So rook to a1 is a much better move. Anyway, rook to b1 and pawn to b6. I kick the knight. This is a complication because I'm attacking a high value piece. A little bit of calculation. We both capture rooks. And after knight to e6, I find rook to c8, both attacking the undefended pawn on c2. And after black defends that pawn, the knight at e6 cannot escape the trap after king f7. The best is knight when you count all the moves available. The best this knight can do is play knight takes g7 to capture a pawn as he goes down, and then king takes g7, I'm up a full piece. I wouldn't play that against the computer on its maximum level. We still get, well, this is pretty. Let's try it. Let's try it. Maybe I can do it. It's, yeah, because white is down to his, her, they last piece. And the pawn structure is preaching towards mostly a quiet situation. Alright, let's go back. This was the resigned position. I think rook c4 is still good. Wow, try to limit white's rook activity with bishop a4. This doubled pawn, I say, is best to be traded off. Against this pawn, mostly keeping, making space for the king to develop. Alright, overall, the game reasonably accurate. The game plus the finish all the way to checkmate, also accurate. So I'm glad about that. Lengthy game when played out to checkmate. Was it at move 74? I checkmated the computer on maximum level. I should mention this that yeah, here it says computer on maximum. My opponent played through to this move, and then from this move onward, I was playing against our Silicon friend on the maximum settings. Has an appeal that says I could have finished this out in real life if I had to, which wasn't entirely true. I could have finished out because I would have had a stalemate. I stalemated the king at one point, but with just one, I think just one take back or replay or takesy backsies, whatever you want to call it, with just one take back, I was able to force checkmate here on move 74. So that's cool. And the game was accurate in that way. So that's also cool. I'm expecting some company not too soon. I'm not sure if I'm gonna play another game. Let's maybe let's take a break. I'm gonna take a break. All right. Thank you all for watching. Thank you, Gravitrons. I'm more gravity. Have a great night.